This is Flipping the Script podcast, the soon-to-be #1 leadership podcast for purpose-driven leaders and great guest experts who give us a unique insight into what leadership looks like behind the scenes. I'm Shalia Stafford, your host, and I'm committed to helping you lead your challenges using leadership strategies to gain new perspectives, fuel your growth, and transform the way you execute on your success. Hello, and welcome back to Flipping the Script, Leadership Behind the Scenes. This is a show for purpose-driven leaders all about the organic journey of evolving our leadership. Have you ever wondered what goes on in the journey of someone's life before they gain the courage to flip the script, not just in their life, but to go on and change the game for an entire industry in sales and marketing? Well, these are just two of the topics you'll find us discussing in today's episode as we highlight a leader worth following. Sangram is the co-founder and chief evangelist of Terminus, a leader in account-based marketing, and has raised over $20 million in funding. Prior to co-funding Terminus, Sangram ran marketing at Pardot through the acquisition of ExactTarget, which was then acquired by Salesforce for $2.5 billion. He wrote the very first book on account-based marketing, and he's an international speaker and host of the top 50 business podcast called FlipMyFunnel. Sangram has been recognized as one of the top 21 B2B influencers in the world by DMN Network and 40 Under 40 by DM News. Sangram, we are so grateful to share the next 40 minutes with you to inspire others to lead the complexities of their success and really understand the organic side of what it means to evolve our leadership. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me and the background, and just excited to hear even your story and your journey prior to this is fascinating. So I'm honored to be on the show.
And we're excited to have you. In the spirit of the show, we like to ask our guests a few fire away questions to get to know you a little bit better. Shall we fire away?
Well, fire away.
What's an uncommon belief that you hold?
Uncommon belief, quick to listen, slow to speak.
What do you understand today about your life that you didn't understand a year ago?
I think a lot of things that happen, they all happen for a reason. I'm always worried about why is this happening to me and why now, or why can't I? And then when you take a step back and look at all the things that have happened in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they're the reason why I am who I am. So everything happens for a reason. It took a long time for me to learn.
What's something that you failed at?
A lot of things. A lot of things. I failed at the very first startup we did before starting Terminus. I failed several times as a father. I feel like as we raising our kids and have started to be more intentional, that's a really key word around that. I feel like I fell several times in our own marriage as a husband, trying to put work over family and things of that nature that just is respected in the society, but at home it actually kills you and crushes great relationships that are the bedrock for anything of purpose and meaning that you want to build. And I think I failed at all of those things more than I could admit. And I think through the process of just being a bit more intentional, I think I've started to regain some of that and rebuild some of that.
What's something that you'll never do?
I think I will never belittle another person, no matter what they do to me or what they might think or how different our beliefs are. And it has happened to me several times. And if you are trying to do something different, you would always hear from naysayers and people who would just tell like that's not happening, or almost like wonder if you could do or not. But I listen to Andy Stanley's podcast, and one of the things he said that whenever somebody comes up with a really good idea that you just don't know even how they're going to begin it, instead of asking the very question how, start asking the question or start saying, wow, that's a big idea, and let that conversation take from there. But how will kill the idea, because all of a sudden you're questioning their ability to do it, and wow really encourages them to all right, well, let's just figure it out together. So I just don't want to ever question other people's motives and their ability to think big.
That's something that I'm going to steal from you and take it over to my children when they present their ideas.
Go away. And it's from Andy Stanley. And I think I have definitely used it, and I've caught myself finding saying, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to pull this event together? Or how are we going to so and so? How are we going to do two different things? Like, instead of that, wow, that's a really big idea. Well, let's unpack that a little bit, and then let the person either come to the same conclusion that you might have, or let maybe you would learn something, which happens more often than not, of like, actually this is really possible if you really put our heads together.
Such a powerful statement there. What is something that you're curious about right now?
I'm curious about just how self-aware I am, and I hear about self-awareness a lot lately. And I think I go through stages of self-awareness, and I just never know if I'm fully self-aware of myself,
Yeah.
of all the things. And so I'm curious about that. So I literally, in my notebooks, every notebook I would ever I ever write in, the first 2 pages are some of my ideas, my beliefs, my affirmations, and I have this big area dedicated to this one question I've written every day as I open the notebook, that literally says, am I self-aware today? And I'm just trying to take a moment to like, all right, how am I feeling? Am I upset? I'm happy. I'm excited. Like, what am I today? And just know that before I walk into anything today.
So, what is an experience that you're currently seeking to challenge or support your leadership?
I think I'm more and more seeking to just the the idea of empowering decision making across the organization a lot more than ever before. So as you shared about Terminus, we went from about 3 co-founders. We started about 5 years ago to now, about close to 170, 80 people based here in Atlanta and San Francisco. And I think as a founder, initially you're like, all right, I got the idea, let's go, let's move on. And now as the organization has grown, I think there comes a point where you start figuring out, okay, I don't have the best ideas all the time. There are people who know better than me now than ever before. They understand how to scale certain things that I have absolutely no clue. And there are meetings that I have no business in, because there are really, really good and smart people. So, how do you empower decision makings at the same time, knowing and making sure I'm focused on creating a culture of like, ultimately, here is what we want to achieve. As long as we're doing that, and as long as we as an organization are focused on that, how we go about doing that is something that I have to step away from. Is something that I'm really focused on lately.
So, if we had to imagine that your 109-year-old self had access to a time machine and they jumped into that time machine and arrived to this very moment in time, they climb out, sit next to you, and give you advice, what would they say?
Chill out, Sangram.
Ah,
It's a long time. Like, if I'm gonna live that long, it's here. Chill out. Don't just try to do a million things every day. You can take one day at a time. And I think I forgot who said this, but I think somebody said that people overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can do in a decade. And
mm.
I think that instead of trying to climb the mountain in a day, if you keep chipping at it and over a period of a decade, I think you're going to look back and say, oh my goodness, we almost have climbed the Mount Everest and many more like that, because we are so focused. Even, we were talking about LeaderCast a minute ago. I interviewed Angie, who's the CEO, Angela Roth, who's the CEO of LeaderCast. And she literally said that as well. In her view of leadership was, put your heads down for a decade and work. Like, I mean, there's no really more smarter way to, or any, maybe there's eloquent way to say that, but put your head down for a decade in whatever field, whatever area you're passionate of, and just work. Don't look at left, don't look right, don't look at what others are doing, don't try to copy others. Just heads down for a decade, and you'd be surprised when you lift up your head is that you would be in a completely different position, place in life, than trying to just hop around too much.
Do you think that when we're trying to do that and put our heads down, that part of the problem of being able to keep it down is that we have to know what the vision for our impact is
I
in the
think,
bigger picture?
yeah, I think there is reason why we need to have mentors in life, and there's reason why we need to have sounding boards in our life that we could go back to and talk and make sure that we are on the right stream of consciousness. But there's also this part of you are the writer of your own journey. You're making decisions every day as to what time do you wake up, and do you wake up an hour before you need to wake up. I have this theory around that people who wake up because they have to, they're gonna do life the way others want them to have. And people who wake up because they want to, and that would mean that you have a different waking style, a different time, and all that stuff, you're gonna have a life that you want to have. And I think that really sums up the idea that, look, you can have a picture for your life, but the question really comes down to what are you willing to put towards that. And that pretty much dictates from the very moment and the reason why you woke up this morning.
Very true. And when you think about something like that, and we hear that we should be keeping our goals written down and continuously look at them, make our goals smart. For most of us, we're struggling to even try to create our goals for the next week or the next day.
Yeah, I
How
agree.
do we go about thinking about that 10-year goal?
Yeah, I agree. It's funny you say that, because going back to me writing everything I could think about, or ideas that come up that I feel I need to have it front and center, I just write it in the first 2 pages of my notebook. So if you ever meet, when we meet, not if, when we meet in real life again, I will share that with you, and it has my 10 things that are super important. But those are something that I have developed over the last decade or so, and some of them are checkbox, like I've got there, and some of them I don't know if I would ever get there, and that's okay. I feel my wife is the
Yes.
greatest teacher for me on this. She's like, it's okay. The most important thing counts is that, did you put the effort? Did you do your best? And if you did that, the chances are you're probably going to be in a much better place, position, life, all those things included. And you have to define your definition for success. Because I think a lot of times the reason we have these 10-year goals and 15 years goal is because so and so in your friend circle, or so and so, as you've seen others, you just define success based on money, or you based on all these things, and everybody wants to find out for themselves when they have the money if it's good or bad, right? uh,
Right.
but I think we all can attest internally that the amount of money is actually not, if that is your success criteria, I think you are going to be very disappointed. and
Yep.
and I think what really matters is you defining your own internal intrinsic state of happiness, whatever that means. It doesn't mean you need to work less, doesn't mean you want to have less money, but it just means that you just know what really makes you happy, and run your own race as opposed to running somebody else's.
If we don't define our success, others will.
Others will, they will. In a marketing world that I am mostly in, another way to say that, what you just shared is, if you don't position yourself, your competitors will position you, and you wouldn't want to be in that place. So it's exactly true.
So, on that note, before we dive into your journey as a leader, would you mind giving everyone a backgrounder on why one of your goals is to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people and help them think bigger by starting small and also going faster?
All right, so that one really comes from a really embarrassing story, which I've wrote the story of this story. All right, at some point I had this goal, and if there was a way to look at LinkedIn, a few years back, you would see it. My headline didn't say that. My headline said, "I want to be a CEO of $1 billion company." And that was purely an egoistic, self-obsessed, over the top one, what how I define success. That was me, straight up. And I realized in the last 5 years or so, since I've changed that to what you see now, is that was not at all helping me do anything other than one day say something like, I literally go back to the point, like, what is somebody going to say when I die?
Mm.
Nobody's going to say, "Oh, Sangram was amazing author," or somewhere Sangram was or amazing, CEO or a founder of a company. I hope nobody says that, because that means they have nothing to say for me. And instead, I think we all want people to say that, man, he really cared. He really helped me when nobody was watching. He actually was there when nobody was there, or he was someone who actually influenced my life. For that reason, really, what I started to think about is that what we really want or crave in our life is impact. Even though we
Yes.
want, and we sometimes we define impact by this idea of being a CEO, or impact by having so and so amount of money, or having such and such title. But if you really think about, impact doesn't come from that. I can show you and know of, being just a founder, I just know hundreds of CEOs now and founders now who actually feel helpless and guilty and lonely and in depression, and they are CEOs of multi-million dollar companies. And that's to me, it just started to shift, in that really what I want to do is have impact. And instead of trying to build $1 billion company one day, which may or may not happen, and that's okay, is to like figure out a way, and we could be completely aspirational. So instead of $1 billion company CEO, I just changed to, why not billion people in the world, if that's even possible. So it really started with me being super selfish about what I want to do and why I wanted to do it.
And for those of you who are like me right now, checking your LinkedIn headline, I'd like to really remind everyone here how this is just so important in what you just said, Sangram, because it's not the fact that we have those moments where we do start off and we put things out there like, I want to be the CEO and make a lot of money, right? Just in being very vague about that title. It's the fact that in our leadership journey, as we're looking to become authentic and more impactful leaders, and the type of leaders who don't just want to grow alone, we want to grow everyone around us. We will have moments where we have the opportunity to evolve our leadership by noticing things like what you just did and what you wrote, and how you put that out in the world, and how it challenged you to continue to step into that leadership, and really reminding yourself that it's about that impact that you want to make.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is, and some people have called me out on that. Is like, dude, do you really feel you could do that? And I went back to like the Declaration of Independence, that's written, where it says the pursuit of happiness. And I think about, why did the forefathers of America had this thought of having pursuit, that word of happiness, in the Declaration of Independence. And I think the only thing I can think about with that phrase is that even they realize that it's a pursuit. And there's probably not a ultimate state where you would be, because you would always have another mountain to climb, another thing to go. So to me, this is no different for me. It's like, this is a pursuit of what I feel my impact want to be. And if ends up being one person at the end of the day, that is okay, because that's just a pursuit that I'm on.
You're the accidental evangelist who happened to discover how magic truly happens when you care deeply about a problem in the community. Can you share with us a little bit more about what that problem was for you?
Sure thing. So prior to this, prior to starting Terminus, I ran marketing at Pardot, and we got acquired by Salesforce. I was at Salesforce, and I remember if you're in marketing and sales, this problem exists in every B2B company, where marketing needs to create a bunch of leads, and sales job is to go close those leads. And what I saw over there, the problem was, well, it was expected marketing to keep generating more and more and more leads. And when we really dug into this, what we found out, and then Forrester, which is a well known research firm, came out with a study that said less than 1% of the leads that marketing or sales typically create turn into customers. Another
Wow.
way to say is that 99% of the effort that marketing and sales, and the budget and the time and the energy and the resources that you put in, doesn't drive revenue, which really should throw chill in somebody's spine right now if they're in marketing and sales, because that is just the reality of it. People just don't pay too much attention to that detail, and work around that. So that was the problem that really I was faced with, because that's what I was asked to do, is generate more and more leads. And we started Terminus with this idea that there gotta be a better way to do this. And the story was very quite simply, I was on a flight from San Francisco to Atlanta, and during that flight, I was sitting in the middle seat, no Wi-Fi, so it's a 5-hour flight. So imagine yourself in that, and there were two people, because there's no Wi-Fi, just getting drunk. And I'm like, all right, what do I do with this 5-hour flight? So I was just on a piece of napkin. I started to scribble, and I drew this funnel, which we now call the FlipMyFunnel. And it was just a flipped version of how traditional marketing and sales work. And I ended up writing a blog that turned into a community and podcast. And now we have 100,000 subscribers to it. And all of that started with this very simple problem that seemed to be in the way marketing and sales function for decades in the past, and nobody somehow felt like that needed to be or felt that needed to be shifted, but didn't have really words to put on it. And I happened to be at the right place at the right time to flip it and promote a new way of doing it, which helped us launch the company in a big way. But that's the problem that we focused on. And I'm a big proponent of, you ever hear me speak or do any podcast or events or whatever, I would never talk about our own product as a company to pitch. I'm like, there are people in the company who can pitch our product better. My job as an accidental evangelist is that I just want to talk about the problem that we have, find people who have similar problem, create a safe place to communicate. And that's why the LinkedIn community and podcast and all that stuff is. And then find ways to solve that problem that is beyond just a product. And if you need a product, we happen to have the product that solves part of the problem, but a lot of the problem is with process and strategy and not just technology. And I want to acknowledge that up front. So in many ways, I ended up becoming the evangelist for the problem and this category that's now created called account-based marketing, which now has, last I checked, over 100,000 jobs as an industry. So for me, that's an impact that's worth than whatever the valuation of our company ever would be, because their lives that have kind of addressed, people have changed their jobs, people now have titles called account-based marketer. And that to me, as an evangelist of the problem, makes me feel really happy about.
That's so amazing. And, as I think about your story and what it took for you to get to where you are, I know that the journey that you traveled from being a first-time co-founder with no established leg on your business and just 3 co-founders to a team of over 200 people who were able to create a movement and position your organization to reach new heights is nothing short of an easy feat. And I'm sure it challenged you in so many ways that some of us can't even imagine yet. But as you once mentioned, that one of your favorite top podcasts is The Story Brand, and I love them. Mm-hmm. And I agree that our leadership starts with our stories before our career. For you, what was your story?
Well, I mean, a lot of that story was because it's a software platform for marketers. I think I had to become the story myself as someone who have had the pain. And that's one of the reasons why I became the spokesperson, if you will, not for the company, but the problem, because I'm a marketer and it's a marketing problem. And I tell this all the time. If you ask me to go sell a car or a toothbrush, or I'll be horrible at it, or any other medical software, I'll be horrible at it, because I don't have if I'm not passionate about it, I won't be great at it. And one of the things I recommend people is that find the problem that your heart is broken for because of it. Your job, you sometimes feel in your heart that, that needs to be addressed. And instead of just talking at a kitchen table, just go and do something, or at least start putting stuff around it and start seeing if people would connect with that. And to me, this is a problem that being in marketing for a decade allowed me to really clearly see that this is not something that I'm just coming up. This is something that I face in 3 companies straight up now, even the most iconic company, Salesforce. So this had to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. And if nobody's doing it, I'm just going to give it a shot. And to me, that is the part of my personal story of just as a marketer that connected with the community, because I could go and empathetically say that, hey, look, I know exactly where you are, because that's exactly where I am most of the time, or I was most of the time. But let's go together, find a problem. On a personal side, I think the story around the fact that I was at Salesforce, my wife wasn't working at that time. We just had our second kid, Kiara, our daughter, and she was 4 weeks. And I come home one night and after meeting my other two co-founders and say, I'm gonna go do this thing. And I remember she's like, well, what are you going to do this thing? And when are you going to do this thing? And how are you going to do this thing? And how much money do you have? And the answer to all those questions with a big smile on my face was, I have no idea. And she was at the end of the first week, she's like, I recognize that if you don't do this, you'll regret. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. If I don't do this, I'm really going to regret. And I need your support and help at this point. And she's like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna go find a real job so we can keep our life, and as we just had our kid, and she literally found a job in 2 weeks. So within 6 weeks of us having Kiara, our second baby, she was working and our daughter was in a daycare. Like, so that's like, I mean, to me, everything I do is right is for my wife right now to give back to what she has given me in some small way. And then she said this something to me that I would never forget, and that really lit fire underneath me. And you need a partner like that in your life. She said, all right, I'm going to go get a job. You go do this thing. I'm fine. You moving on from Salesforce. I'm fine with you don't know these two people, but you're going to start a company with them. I'm fine. You don't have money and you're not going to make any money, but you're going to figure, I'm fine with all of that. But here's the thing. You have 1 year. And if within 1 year, if this thing does not have legs, you're going to go find a real job. And that's it. And to me, that when she said that and that pause that she had after that was like thunderstorms everywhere.
It was game on.
Game on, right? So to me, that was like the driving force for a whole bunch of things we did in the first year, which included writing a book, doing 4 conferences, which is not typically any startup company doesn't do it. But because nobody knew about ABM at that time, we just went city to city, to San Francisco, to Austin, to Atlanta, to Seattle, to Chicago. And we did this mini conferences, just spreading the gospel of ABM and just getting people engaged, so that later on when we do a big conference and when we do launch something, we just have a ton of people following the movement as we go. But if it wasn't for her commitment and courage that she, and the trust that she had in me, and giving me more specifically a timeline, I think a lot of what I'm talking about would be just vaporware.
Throughout your career, especially for many of us, when we start out in the working force at, let's say, 18, and we're starting off in college and we're completing that, the beginning season of that time frame in life is about proving our skill set, getting a promotion, and perhaps increasing our pay. I know I've heard from some of your videos that I've watched that you're known for having a 30, 60, 90, 120, all the way up to 1,460-day plan. When you first started out in your career and before you reached this big defining moment, was this part of your vision? Did you know what you wanted to do? And was that part of your strategy?
It's so funny. That video was what you're referring to is my farewell video from one of, when I was at Internet. That was so funny that my team did that video for me. And
that was hilarious.
Yeah, they did a really, really awesome. I still have that video, and I'm literally looking at that group picture of all the people. They together gave me a photo frame of them with a QR code that I can scan that and watch that video. So
oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah, they were a marketing team for sure. I think the planning of 30, 60, 90 days is I think internally as a company or as a team member, I think is important for people to just have some process around it. And the reason I try to break it down into something like that, or any way possible, is into manageable chunks, as I like to call it, because people get overwhelmed with like, okay, we need to launch a new website. We need to run 2 events, or we need to do X, Y, and Z things. People just all of a sudden they see all the problems in the world and the million things that needed to be done. And when you say that, you know what, in the next 30 days, we just need to make sure that we have a strategy and an agency that can help us do this. That's all we focus on. In the next 60 days, we're going to figure out all the content we need to write to make sure that we have a really awesome site put together, all that stuff. And then finally, in 90 days, we need to launch it. And when you break it down in that way, I think in at least in my head, things become a lot simpler, easier to execute on, and with quality, as opposed to trying to just do everything all at once and just crap all over it. So to me, a little bit of that planning or is really more of to breaking off into manageable chunks that you can see the end and how you'll get
So was it like that for 18-year-old Sangram when you started off in your career?
there. Oh no. 18-year-old Sangram had no idea what he's doing for the most part. Still today the same. And I feel like it's interesting thing about leadership and entrepreneurship is also that I was 36 when we started Terminus, so I'm like just crossed 40, and at 36 I remember people even saying, "Man, you got kids, you got family, you got a mortgage, you got car payments. You should not be doing this right now." That was another big thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I have more experience right now. I understand how to lead a team. I understand
Yes.
complexity. I can manage finances. I can learn. But so it was almost like, wait a minute, the world is telling me exactly the opposite of what I believe was my strength, as calling them as these roadblocks and dependencies that was pulling me back. And seeing two kids at home that you have to support, it's going to only drive me more to do a better job at it. So in many ways, I think a lot of the traditional norms of how people think about stuff, I think somehow get broken down when you believe in something beyond a shadow of doubt.
With you saying that, and it's such a great point, going into saying that at 36, you felt even more prepared because you had had the experiences that you needed to set you up for a successful launch. When you were navigating your career throughout the evolving phases, when you encountered different challenges, did you ever connect those challenges back to one day when I launch my company, this is going to help me here? Or how did you deal with challenges that you faced throughout your career?
I think being an immigrant, you automatically have a different, in somewhat, I feel like
Yeah.
you have a little bit of a different view of life because you don't have a safety net at all. So when I came to the States, I came from India to Alabama, Tuscaloosa of all places.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a culture shock when you think about it. I realized football is a religion over there altogether, all that. And then, all I had was $350 in my pocket. And that's it. And I remember my brother and my parents saying, all right, you go find a job and you go figure out how you're going to pay the fees. And they just took a loan for the first, like $5,000 for the first semester. That's what I needed at that time. And I had to pay them back or the bank back, because there's no way we could afford the interest that they would have. So to me, at that time, I remember going to this critical languages department, which apparently every university has. And if you bring three people in that class to teach a course, they will essentially pay for your tuition. So I literally found in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, kid you not, like couples in which one person had an Indian background or from an Indian descent, Asian descent, and one American. I said, you all need to learn each other's languages. So I'm going to teach you the language Hindi of India, and we're going to do a class on it. And I found four people to do it. And that's how we paid my tuition fees for the first 2 years in Alabama. And I share that is because when I knew that there wasn't a safety net, I was literally walking the next day when I landed in for the first time in America, in Alabama, looking for jobs because there wasn't another option. So I feel like that is a mindset that is actually powerful if you use it, that you don't have option B. This is it.
Right.
You need to put whatever it takes to do it and give it all. And if you fail, just know that's okay. But it's not okay to not give it all and just regret that you didn't do it all, didn't give it all, didn't take the time, didn't put the effort, didn't wake up an hour early. I think those are not an okay excuse. And I think to me that has just been the pattern of my life for the most part, is to just know that, look, there's no option B. But failing is perfectly fine, but failing with excuses is not fine.
Was there ever a point in time where you failed and the first reaction that you had was an excuse rather than owning what had actually happened?
Well, I mean, a lot of that was with my family, as I shared. A lot of it was in the first 2 or 3 years when we did, in spite of what my wife did for me to get me to get going, immediately forgot that. I think I had a short term memory lapse of all the things that she's going through and she's still working and I'm still working. And, we haven't seen a payday, if you will. We will at some point, but that's as far beyond what we want anymore. Like we're just happy that we get to do what we're doing. But I lost a sense of intentionality with my wife and the kid. I just would pass the buck. Oh, I'm running this company. I'm spending time there. I need to do more. I need to travel more. I need to do all these things. And in all of that, although as much of that was true, it was also a lie, because there was a better way to manage my day. There was a better way to focus on things that are important. And there was better way to work harder without just losing everything in your home, and just going to every single dinner and every single morning breakfast and every single, I didn't have to do that, but I did. So in many ways, I failed many a times miserably. And honestly, I feel like in the last 2 years is really when I feel like I came back into my norm. So, as an example, the biggest thing I did was originally almost all functions reported into me at Terminus. And as we grew, and as I traveled a lot more and I was writing another book, all the things that led to the growth of the business, I essentially went from having so many direct reports and so much all these things to literally having zero direct reports, because I was like, I can't do both. So that has allowed me to still travel and do the work that needs to be done. And let's say I'm traveling Tuesday to Thursday, Monday and Friday, I'm working from home. I'm picking up the kids. I'm there at 3:30 when they're coming from school. And those moments just became more important for me than actually having a title and the leader of every single function and every single department. And those are all choices that I think we all have to make at some point. I feel privileged to be able to make that as a choice, but and it took me a year to truly accept that I'm letting go of things, not giving up, because there's a different connotation with the mindset that you have of like letting go of these responsibilities, because I am that allows me to feel honestly as I've been in charge, and it's better this way than to be in a position where I had to choose. And I don't want to choose. I want to be able to be effective. And this is now allowing me to be effective at work, be focused when I'm there, and effective at home, as in when I'm able to balance it. And it's now a gauge that I use all the time. But I've failed and continue to fail, but I've failed more at home than at work. And that is one of my unfortunate legacies of bringing up my family right now.
But you know what? What you just described is the true, authentic version of what leadership looks like. It's not always, it's a spectrum, right? Sometimes we're doing better than other times, but it's our ability to catch ourselves when we know that we are drifting away from the things that we really value. And we're able to make a change based on new information that we gain, or just knowing where we want to be rooted in and the impact that we want to create. But it's not that we necessarily do the things that go against our values and our impact. Is that we have the capability of learning how to make that shift, that change, because transformation, it's a process. It's not an event. And being who you are today, it took a lot of these moments having to happen and you being tested under new pressure, right? Like you hadn't experienced launching this stage of a business. And now that you did, it tested your leadership, which is the perfect playground. Any type of new challenge tests our leadership, and it gave you the opportunity to make a shift. Whether it took, the time frame that you wanted or a little bit longer or faster, nonetheless, it brought you to who your authentic leadership is in today's moment.
Yeah, and as you share that, I mean, I'm just in my head. It's like when you're in an accident and you get the whole life just rolls in front of you. I'm having the whole last 5 years roll in front of me right now as I'm thinking and talking through this. I think it's a very emotional roller coaster of good, bad, ugly, lonely, labeled, not fair, over fair, supportive, uncaring, empathetic. I've been in place in times where I felt literally the opposite feeling from two different people in the company, based on a decision that I made because one felt it was unfair, and the other person felt like it was overly fair to somebody else. And I have to realize that my job is not to make everybody happy. My job is to make the right decisions for the people and the business. And I'm never gonna make everybody happy, and that's okay. But my number one job is to explain the point and the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, and be okay later on to be wrong in my own decision. But if I don't make the decision, I've seen that, and I've done that in the early days where I took too long to make a decision, and I felt like that was even worse because of all the different things and politics and people and craziness gets involved in it. But if you make the decision, chances are that you can reverse it. And it could be reporting structures, it could be people thing. But if you don't make the decision, and if you just linger it and let it linger and let it fester, good people are going to figure that out and leave, which is not what you want. And people are going to start looking at you as like, all right, does he even know what he's doing? And you don't want to create an environment where people feel like we are paralyzed by making decisions.
Absolutely. And it just increases your wisdom and your resiliency.
No doubt.
You have mentioned that when you're launching a company, you need different things for different stages. And sometimes we just have to find ways to get out of our own way. I believe that leadership is a lot like that too. Depending upon where we are in our season of life, we are going to need different things depending upon the new challenges that we have to lead. Success is the after effect that comes. It's more in how we lead our challenges and knowing the tools and the strategies that we need to stay in purpose and be impactful and evolving our authenticity. So what's next for you?
Right now, we just obviously published my second book on marketing. So I'm in the throes of that. The community is growing. I'll be speaking at LeaderCast next year. So I'm really excited about that, which I haven't really spent too much time thinking about, which I should, because it's a pretty big stage. So I'm going to be ready for that. And really, honestly, with Krish being 9, Kiara being 5, and the fact that I'm able to have this relationship and time, I just want to really, I never thought I would say this, but I just want to cruise for a little bit. I just want to put a really good effort every single day, but then at the end of the day, be able to shut down my laptop and be present. And that is really what my goal is for as long as I can actually keep doing that.
That's the goal for all of us in life. It's to be able to experience the joy and the everyday moments that we have with the people we serve in our family.
Absolutely.
Sangram, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our leaders. It's clear to see why you're a leader worth following. And as we wrap up the show, how would you challenge our listeners to evolve their leadership based on any of the stages that they could be in with their leadership journey?
I would say define your own success definition. Like what does that truly mean? And really take the time, write it down, talk to your mom, talk to your dad, because they're probably the one who might be able to share, or talk to your friends who you think and you admire or mentor. Not because they have money or anything, just and look at it, what is it really important to you? But define what success means to you, because until you define what success means to you, I think it's really hard for you to figure out what to do to achieve that, to get there. And a lot of times we go in different routes that are not going to make you really happy. So define what success means to you, what the ultimate success definition is for you. And it's okay if it takes in my case, it took me almost 36 years to figure out what it means, right? So it's okay to take time. Don't rush yourself, but define that, and because that figuring that part out will help you figure out the journey you want to take.
I love that. And to our listeners, the ball is in your court. I challenge you to take action and continue the difficult conversations around leading the complexities of our success, and reach out to Sangram to learn more about account-based marketing with Terminus. You are listening to Flipping the Script, Leadership Behind the Scenes. Thank you, Sangram.
Thank you so much, Adia. Excited.
If you found even the smallest nugget of wisdom in this episode, share it with a friend and your friend will thank you. Let's continue the conversation with like-minded leaders and join us on Facebook at Go Flip the Script. Until next time, I challenge you to incorporate what you learned today to evolve your leadership impact.